Okay, welcome everybody to the third of today's sessions for the 2020 OR Society Careers Open Day, the first that we've held online. For those of you who've been in one or both of the earlier sessions, welcome back. Or for any newbies that have joined, welcome. Before we get started with the first of our four exhibitor talks today, let me just run through some housekeeping with you. Whilst you're watching the presentations, we suggest that you position the speaker window in the top right-hand corner of your screen, where the red box is showing on this screen, so that you can see the content of the slides. Please use the chat function if you need to get in touch with us as the organisers for any reason. Please use the Q&A function to submit questions for our four presenters while they're talking. We've got a Q&A time scheduled at the end of this session where we'll deal with the questions for all the exhibitors in one go. You can upvote or upweight the questions by clicking on the little thumb icon. What this means is the more popular questions, if they're a repeat theme, get shifted to the top of the list, and they're the ones that I'll be asking first. We might have some polls during the session, although I don't think so in this final session. The videos from all of the sessions will be available as soon as possible after the open day is finished, and you'll be receiving details of those just as soon as they're ready. The other session that we've got organised is the one-to-one sessions with the exhibitors that are taking place on Thursday. I know some of you already have booked appointments there, but please do go and book any more from today's sessions as soon as you can to avoid missing out. Okay, well, we'll jump straight into the talks. And as you can see from the graphic there, we've got four organisations lined up. So we'll jump straight into our first. So let me introduce Beth Warren, Josh Gay, and Zoe Walters, all of whom are consultants of different types at Atkins. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm just going to share my screen. One of Zoe or Josh, if you can shout that you can see that.
Right, yeah, I can see that. If you just go into full screen. Perfect, yeah. Thank you. Great. So there's three of us here. We're here to talk about the Management Consultancy Graduate Scheme at Atkins. So I'm Josh Gay, and I'm a graduate in physics, and I've been with Atkins for about 2 years. Been involved in some exciting work since I've been here, and I'll pass on to Zoe.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Zoe. I studied maths and physics at university. I've been at Atkins for 2 months now, and I'm working with one of our confidential clients as a reporting officer at the moment.
And then I'm Beth. I did a degree in maths, and I did a master's in operational research, and I have been at Atkins for just over 3 years. I started as a transport planner, and then moved over to the business we're going to talk about today at the start of this year. Halfway through their graduate scheme, completed that a couple of months ago, and I'm now a member of the business modelling and analysts team.
Great. So I've already mentioned that we're here representing the Management Consultancy Graduate Scheme. So I thought I'd take the opportunity first to sort of explain where this fits in Atkins as a whole. So Atkins is a globally respected sort of design, engineering and project management consultancy, and it's part of the wider S&C Lavalin Group. Management consultancy sits in the UK and Europe division within the ADS&T market, which stands for Aerospace, Defence, Security and Technology. And that means we have some interesting clients and challenges which we've been able to be involved in during our time as graduates. If you go on to the next slide, if that's all right, Beth. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about why you should work at Atkins. Some of these are graduate related and some are just to do with the company as a whole. And then just shortly after, Zoe's going to talk a bit about her experience as a graduate, and then Beth some more about specific OR type work that we do. So initially, I've had a great time on my 2 years at Atkins. I've had a lot of different work during this time. I've worked with 3 different clients. So when I started, I was working with the Ministry of Defence doing cost forecasting and analysis there. Then I was able to move my work over to Heathrow to do something I was more interested in the longer term. And they gave me the flexibility to do that. And this was at Heathrow, where I was doing data analysis, helping them inform their sort of commercial decisions based on the data that they already held. Also in my team at Heathrow, there's some more sort of traditional operational research as well, where we had teams using discrete event simulation to model the flow through sort of passenger lanes. Now I'm at Network Rail, and at Network Rail, I'm doing more data science type work, and we've just had a new department that does data intelligence, and that's where I'm in. So finally, I just want to mention the culture at Atkins is people interested in everything they're doing and they're willing to help you out. So this transition that I've done has all been with the help of everybody there. Next slide. Thanks, Beth. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about working in a consultancy. So we hire on what's called a T-shaped consultant. So the top of the T is the breadth of a consultant skill, and then the bottom is the technical skill. So we're not looking for purely people with a deep technical skill in an area, but people with the breadth of the skill to be a sort of a communicator, to be self-motivated, to be willing to take on a variety of work. And actually through the graduate scheme, we would expect people to then sort of find their path and find what they're interested in and sort of forge their own path. So we really hire on that breadth. Atkins as a company has lots of different staff networks. We have Equilibrium, Enable, STEM, the Women's Professional Network, BAME, mindfulness communities, all which are backed by the company. And all which get a lot of thought put into them, and particularly in sort of scenarios as we've had this year, everybody has their own challenges, and these groups can kind of represent the different challenges people have and help them get through those. And finally, some of the experiences and challenges that we've seen. So when you join Atkins, there's a graduate induction, which is a two-day initial induction, followed by a sort of wider 2-week introduction to the business. There's things such as the yearly charity challenge. There's an annual ski trip for graduates. There's a summer trip, a graduate forum, and everybody in the company, not just graduates, gets 2 days volunteering that they can use to support a cause that they'd like to. This is, I will say, sort of pre-COVID, things like the ski trip, but they're always subject to they're subject to change, but we're looking for opportunities for new things for this coming year.
Thanks, Josh. So Atkins Junior Consultant Development Programme is Atkins' very own management consultancy graduate scheme. So it's constantly growing. As you can see, in 2007, it started with 8 graduates, and now we have over 70 graduates going through the programme. So the programme itself has its very own management team, so it's constantly shaping it to provide as much support as possible for the graduates taking part. And you'll also be supported by your own line manager and also a buddy who is another consultant who is on the scheme. So this means that you'll always be supported in your work. The programme runs for 2 years, so you'll develop those core consultancy skills that Josh mentioned previously. You'll also be able to work on a wide range of projects like Josh, and you'll be able to build yourself a strong portfolio of work and deliverables. So a typical week at Atkins, usually you spend about 4 days working on your client work, and then 1 day is spent on working on internal work. So this can be exploring an area you're interested in and working on charity projects. For example, I'm working on a project delivering some market research for a charity called Save the Children, whilst also looking into driving sustainability within Atkins. Next slide, please, Beth. So as we mentioned before, the Junior Consultant Development Programme is a very broad scheme. So there are a number of career paths you could take, and they're an example of some of these on the slide, but this list isn't exhaustive. So there are many opportunities for you to progress in a career direction. You don't need to be sure in which direction this needs to be to start with. But obviously, if you are set on a career path, then of course you can shape the scheme to take you in the direction you'd like to go. Next slide, please, Beth. So the JCDP culture is a massive part of what makes Atkins such a great place to work. You're really encouraged to work as a team and work collaboratively across the business. So you're really encouraged to share knowledge and help each other. From the outset, you're told you're not pitched against each other. You're really there to help each other to grow and explore the areas of interest. And like we said previously, equality, diversity and inclusion is a massive part of our work on the JCDP. So there's always opportunities to get involved in promoting this within Atkins. And next slide, please, Beth. So I joined Atkins in September 2020, and in the run up to joining, I must say I was a bit apprehensive about how the process would work, as I'd never joined a new role virtually. So Atkins made the process really smooth. In the month leading up to my start day, I had phone calls from my line manager and my buddy just to answer any questions that I may have had about the process, and then also receive my technology before starting so I could start on day one. We also had the opportunity to meet other graduates who were joining and get a timetable about the work that we'd be doing in the first 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks was really focused on getting to know your fellow graduates and understanding how the business works and meeting lots of people from across Atkins. We also had a strong focus on getting to know each other. So we took part in challenges, we played games like Murder Mystery and had virtual socials. So although it was difficult joining virtually, I feel like I've really got to know the people who I've joined with and have definitely made some really good friends. And the second week of the induction, you will probably have it slightly less structured. You get to meet your client team. So you'll be put on your first client project. You'll get to meet your client team and then get to do any sort of training modules that you need to do on our very own learning zone. So it's slightly less structured, and it will culminate in a presentation to senior leadership on what you've learned from the experience so far and what you hope to get out of the consultancy programme. Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Zoe. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about OR specifically in Atkins. So mainly our OR skills kind of come into the business modelling and analysis team. However, we have jobs across the whole entire business, such as in the data science team and the GIS consultants team. The business modelling and analysis team's main skill set is kind of the quantitative modelling and analysis of problems that clients face. This comes through in 3 different areas: operational research, cost modelling, and in business case support. Some of the services we offer are on the screen there. So we have things like discrete event simulation that Josh mentioned earlier at Heathrow, some maintenance scheduling. We've done some supply chain modelling to kind of show the availability of fleets, and many more examples. Business modelling analysis, also do some data analysis, in particular kind of modelling the inputs and outputs of the models they use. So for example, in a project at Heathrow involving kiosk modelling, they kind of use data and statistical analysis techniques to find the suitable distributions for kind of to model the user groups going into that model. As Josh mentioned earlier, we also have the kind of newly developed data science team and data intelligence, which is involved in kind of lots of exciting problems, like using AI to kind of identify overgrown vegetation on rail lines. Looking at a specific case study for business modelling and analysis, this one involves the Defence Equipment and Support Organisation, so DE&S. The Director Technical wanted to plan and develop engineering capability across the organisation, specifically to understand how to create the next generation of deep technical experts. So Atkins created a systems dynamic model representing the engineering staff life cycle within the organisation, and ran a series of experiments showing how things like change to retirement date, graduate recruitment and kind of career paths and lots of other policies could impact on the overall engineering capability. And this really helped the client kind of to assess the impact of those policies on the ability for them to have skilled engineers to undertake projects in the future. This is just one case study in the business modelling and analysis domain. However, there's a few more included in the digital pack in your delegate bags. So onto the graduate application process. Our applications are open now, and they can be accessed using the S&C Lavalin Early Careers webpage. You can explore all the graduate schemes we have on offer. The one we've mentioned today is kind of titled under Management Consultancy. And the process that the kind of application involves is you'll do a situational judgment test, and you'll also be asked to fill out a kind of full application. If you're successful at this, you'll have a telephone interview, which is normally done with a HR representative. Again, if you're then successful, you'll have a virtual interview with the business, which is kind of akin to the face-to-face you'd normally have at an assessment centre. And then finally, you'll be invited to a virtual assessment centre. You'll be given plenty of information and opportunity to ask questions on this virtual assessment centre, as it's quite a new thing. Again, all of this information is available in the slide pack in that kind of digital delegate bag. So all that's left for me to say is kind of have a look around the website. There's loads of information on there, and there's the opportunity to use the chatbot to speak to graduates and all of those kind of things. So if you ask any questions in the Q&A box, but if you have a question that comes to you next week, then use that link and you'll be able to go through there. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Beth, and to Josh and Zoe. Good start to the afternoon. We've already got some questions coming through on the Q&A. Let's carry on adding to those as we move through the remainder of our presentations. Next up, we've got FICO. We've got Melanie String, who's a graduate analytics consultant, and Melanie's going to be joined by Victoria Simpson, who's involved in talent acquisition. So over to you, Melanie.
Thank you very much. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, that's good.
Does that work? Yeah, cool. All right, so first of all, I wanted to thank the R Society for giving us the opportunity to speak to all of you, because I'm really looking forward to it. So first about me, my name is Melanie. I am German, and I studied computer science and software engineering in my bachelor's and master's degree in Germany. And afterwards, I worked part-time, or during my studies, I worked part-time as an artificial intelligence engineer and kind of specialized in machine learning and AI. I moved to the UK in October 2019 then, and ever since December 2019, I work as a graduate at Fico. So who is Fico? That's a good question. I have all the answers. We are a pioneer in the use of predictive analytics and data science to improve operational decisions. Mostly we work with clients from the banking or insurance industry, but we cover a whole lot of other sectors as well. And an example for a typical problem we solve would be, imagine you are a bank and a customer applies and you want to know, should I give them a loan or not? Because you want to know what is their risk. So are they likely going to repay that loan? So then we would offer a scorecard that would look at your past applicants and their performance, so their likelihood of repaying a loan. And from that past behavior of other customers, we would then predict for this specific current customer whether he would be likely to repay a loan. And that starts with those questions and then goes on to, well, if I accept an application, which rate am I going to offer for a loan, etc. So it's a variety of problems to solve. Fico are a very international company as well. Our headquarters are in California, but we have offices all over Europe and the world. Most relevant for you guys are probably the two main ones in the UK, which are the offices in Birmingham, right by the airport, and in London. But we also have people working in home offices all across the UK. And I also thought I'll show you some of our clients. So as you can see on the presentation, there are names like Santander, Barclays, JP Morgan Chase. From more of a banking side, then we have Aviva, which is a big insurance company. But we also have names like Coca-Cola and My Toys, which are not doing banking or insurance. And I think that's super exciting. When my manager tells me your next project is going to be with someone that I can relate to because maybe I'm using their product, that is just a tiny bit more exciting. And you definitely get all of those opportunities at Fico. So personally, I work in the EMEA analytics team, which means we handle clients from Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And we offer a range of services, and they can be kind of split into 6 categories. So we have predictive models. Those would be scorecards that I just mentioned before in my example. We also do a range of model validation and model monitoring services, as well as regulatory services, because in a banking world, everything has to be fair, and therefore everything has to be highly regulated and monitored. We also offer consulting, and we offer training. So we develop a range of software, and if a client buys a license for that, we train them to be able to use our software. And we do optimization, which is very near and dear to my heart, because when you start as a graduate at Fico, you're put into or you put to work into in one of those categories, depending on your strengths, so that you feel comfortable and you can really grow to your full potential. And I was put into optimization given my studies and my background. So I'm the Opti grad, and I'm the only one in optimization, and all the other grads are doing something else, which leads to a great knowledge transfer within the graduates, whether that's within your own team or even outside and across all teams within the graduate scheme. So speaking of graduates, what is it like being a graduate at Fico? I might be a tiny bit biased, but I think it's really great. And I want
You might have accidentally muted yourself, Melanie. We can't hear you anymore.
Too much excitement, Melanie. Have you muted yourself?
Oh my God, have I been muted the entire time?
No.
Yeah,
no,
go back about 10 minutes.
Oh, really? Should you?
No,
start again?
Just this slide.
All right. Okay. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. So yeah, my average working week, 30% is programming. So obviously you're problem solving the entire time. You need data manipulation. We always try to keep everything as efficient as possible, and also collaborative, because our colleagues will have to pick up our code sometimes. Then 30% is modeling, which is a whole different story, because you need to know your client's data and your client's sort of business strategy. You need to understand the correlation between variables so that your models actually work really well. And you obviously need to know something about modeling and optimization. But when I joined, I didn't know anything about finance. I didn't have a credit card or a mortgage or anything. But there's so many people that are so knowledgeable, and they're always there to teach you anything. In the past year, not once have I been told to do it myself, find it out myself. I've always been on calls, and I've always gotten help from everyone, which is great. We also do a lot of internal calls. Obviously, you need to collaborate with your project team, and you need to be able to voice and reason with them, or explain your work, so that they can rely on your work, and also make sure that no one is facing any roadblocks. Then one of the most important things is probably client calls. We are consultants, so we talk a lot to our clients, and we need to adapt to our clients' needs. In the past year or so, there has not been a client that has been like the next one. I've been working with clients from Greece, Romania, Russia, Israel, and the UK, and it's always a different experience. So it's great. Again, you have to be able to explain your work and explain different and complex concepts, and you have to make quick decisions. So if the clients ask you a question and you don't know the answer, you need to be able to tell them that you're going to come back with an answer, or maybe there's someone on the call already that you can invite into the conversation. And the last 15% of my week are documentation. When I left university, I was like, oh, I finished my thesis. I can forget everything I know about scientific writing, but I was very, very wrong, because you actually need all of it. Given that banking is so much regulated, you have to document your models, because your client wants to know everything. They will be over that document like a hawk and criticize everything you're doing wrong. So there's no, oh, I made a mistake, I'll brush it under the carpet. It has to be precise, and it has to be well explained. So then, in terms of opportunities, what can FICO offer? As I said, you're going to learn a lot about credit risk, optimization, regulatory. In the beginning, if you don't know that much about those things, it's a lot of Googling, it's a lot of reaching out to people, but you will learn it eventually. Then we work with clients and we attend on-site meetings. Obviously, not right now. Now we do everything virtually, but it's a great opportunity to improve your communication skills, because you're talking into a blank space instead of to actual people you can see, because most clients don't use their camera. But it just helps you improve and do better. Then learn from a big team based all over the world. As I said, we're a very international company. There's someone who knows it. If you have a problem, you just have to find the person, and then you reach out to people. They all really helpful. We have a FICO Learning Center, which has probably more resources than you could ever read through in your life. So if you want to know anything, if you think, oh, for my personal progression, I want to know something about topic X, you go into the Learning Center and you will find so many resources that will educate you. And FICO grants up to $5,000 of tuition per year for personal development, which you can use to either learn a new language, learn a new skill that is relevant to a project that you're doing at the minute. I, for example, have a lot of colleagues that use it to get additional certificates in order to polish up their CV, for example. So then I was told that you will get these presentations, and we have a graduate handbook. In this handbook, you can look at the graduate scheme, more information about.
Nope, you've gone again, Melanie. We've lost you, Melanie. Okay, thanks, Melanie. We lost you a little bit at the end of that, but I think the information's all there. Thanks very much for that. Just a reminder to everybody to carry on submitting your questions for the panelists that we'll get to a little later on. Next, although I seem to have jumped around in my order, sorry if I've put anybody off their stride. Next, I've got IBM. And I'll be handing over to Adam DeBell. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks very much, Kevin. And to everyone on the call, if you've been sitting here for 5 hours now listening to these, then you're doing great. Stick in there. Thanks. So I'm here to talk to you about graduate opportunities at IBM. A little bit about me first. My name's Adam. I joined IBM from a physics academic background before that. I started IBM in February 2018 when it was the beast from the east. There was a lot of snow on my first day, which tends to ruin London's transport network. And I was actually late for my first day at the company, which is a black mark they've held against me ever since. So since then, I've worked on 5 projects in 5 different industries. And what I'm working on at the moment is some retail sales forecasting. So my client wants to know how much they're going to sell in every one of their stores in every week next year. And I'm trying to tell them the answer. And mandatory corporate headshot on the right there. So in consulting, we kind of have 4 roles available: technology consultant, business consultant, design consultant, and strategic analytics consultant. So we would warmly welcome your application to any of these schemes, but as someone in the operational research space, I would strongly encourage you to drop an application in for the strategic analytics scheme. It's the job I'm in now, and I think it's pretty good, and I think it will suit kind of what you're learning and what you're doing in operational research. At IBM, we're pretty proud to be the Target Jobs Graduate Employer of the Year in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And we're certainly intending to win it in 2021 as well. So we offer a pretty good experience to graduates, and I think the awards kind of show that. So, you know, I'm encouraging you to apply for this job. I want to talk a little bit more about what's actually involved in doing it. So, starting at the end, you'll be a consultant. So IBM's a pretty big beast. It does a lot of different things. But in the consulting space, you'll be working directly with clients to solve their business problems and kind of transform their businesses for the future. Part of that means that we go to our clients. So kind of in my first 2.5 years at IBM, this is all the places I've visited in Europe to go and see different clients, or to go on training courses, or to go to hackathons. So you do travel around a bit. I would say, I guess over my time with the company, I've probably been 50-60% London based, and the rest of the time going to see people. And that's kind of ignoring this year, where obviously I've been 100% London based. So next up, analytics. In this role, you'll be doing highly technical, hands-on kind of analytics projects, working with data, working in data science. Python and R are probably the biggest technologies we use. Excel we try to avoid if we can, and SPSS often comes into the mix as well. I will say, whilst you'll do highly technical work if you work at IBM, you're not expected to know these languages before you join. These are things we can train you in if you've got the right stuff. And then finally, strategic. So whilst this is a technical role, it's not a purely technical role. You're not going to be a Python developer. It's all very well kind of building and training the best model in the world, but it's useless if no one actually bothers to use it. So the strategic element is kind of getting clients from A to B. So, getting them from where they are to where they want to be, and working out how to do that. And so that's kind of the final element, strategic elements consultant. So if that's what you're doing, why should you do it? Why join the team? I think the first big point is it's project-based work. If you're the kind of person who, you're exiting academia now and you're looking at getting a job, but the idea of just doing the same thing every day until you one day die kind of depresses you, then this might be the job for you, because it tends to vary a lot. So typical project length is 3 to 6 months. And when you change projects, it'll be a different client. It'll usually be a different industry. It'll be a different problem to solve. It'll be a different set of skills. And that means there's a lot of variety built in. There's also a mix of very hands-on analytics through to kind of entirely strategy-focused engagements. So yes, that play between the strategy and the analytics. As an example, so the project I said I'm on at the moment, what we need to do is very, very clear, and what our client's going to do with it is also very clear. So it's really very focused on that forecasting challenge and achieving a high level of accuracy. By comparison, I was working on a much more strategy-focused project earlier in the year. So in that, I was working with an automotive client who'd kind of developed quite a cottage industry of analytics and reporting in their organization, with different departments doing very different things. And what they wanted us to do was to sort of come in, speak to these different departments and work out how to get them singing off the same hymn sheet. So increase their analytics maturity, get people working in the same way, and to a similar level of consistency and quality across the organization. And so in a project like that, I was doing a lot more interviewing with people, running workshops and building a report and a case for change. So next up, I've mentioned it already, but you work across industries. So IBM works with pretty much all of the world's biggest companies, and that means that you'll both be working for a technology company that's at the front of a lot of cutting edge work, but also you'll work in different industries. Again, if you're looking at exiting academia and you're not really sure exactly where you want to end up, you'll be able to work with a lot of different industries. You're not expected to specialize in the first 5 years of your career. And that means you can kind of see what makes different areas tick, what kind of industries have interesting challenges, and then when you want to, start to specialize. Next up is learning and skills. So I would say that the skill development at IBM is almost aggressive, and you will, a large part of how people's performance in their early years is measured is through their skill development and through what they're learning. So because it's a client-facing role, you learn a lot of people and business-related skills. Also because you work across industries, you kind of see how different businesses work and how they tick. And also because we do very technical projects, you'll be learning a lot of programming and a lot of different modeling techniques. And finally, I think we do a lot of projects that are very relevant to what you'll have learned in operational research. So as I mentioned, I'm on a forecasting project at the moment, obviously an OR classic. Another strand to what we're doing at the moment is with this client is an optimization piece in the supply chain. So it's quite a pure optimization problem, and actually we've been able to put a colleague of mine on that project, and she has a PhD in optimization. So obviously that's a great chance for her to use the very, very specialized skills that she has. Similarly, if you come to IBM with a very specialized skill set, we will try to or strive to match you with projects where you can put that to use, and that can, I would say operational research is something that's quite well reflected in the analytics team at IBM. Certainly, the head of advanced analytics was actually joined IBM as a graduate into this job from an operational research background. So it's absolutely something or a place where you can do really well as someone coming from OR. Yeah. And then, so next up, the application process, pretty much like anyone else, please apply through our website. One twist, we have the kind of tests first and the application form second. So whilst I'm sure none of you will fail the tests, it does mean you don't have to spend time on a cover letter only to have that happen afterwards. After that, there's an assessment center. It will probably be virtual, but we only have one in-person stage either way. And it's worth saying, I'm afraid all applications are currently shut at the moment, but you can register your interest online and you'll receive a notification when it becomes possible to drop an application in once again. So I think that's about it for me. This is a picture of the team, me looking merry in the top right. I think this is our Christmas party 2 years ago. So we're a pretty close-knit bunch. We look after each other in analytics. Come join us. It's a good job. So thank you for listening. I think that's it from me.
Great. Thanks very much, Adam. That moves us on to the fourth of our presentations for this afternoon. Another reminder to keep the questions coming through the Q&A function, and we'll get to those straight after this next presentation. Next presentation is from the Government OR Service, and delivering that is Robin Wood, who's an analyst at the Department for Work and Pensions.
Hi, afternoon everybody. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about operational research in government. So GORS is the Government Operational Research Service, and whilst I'm based at the Department for Work and Pensions, I'm trying to give you a bit of a sense of operational research generally. So my name is Robin. I'm a Principal Scientific Officer at DWP. So GORS itself is not wedded to any particular department in government. We stretch across all the different facets of the civil service, built of about 950 operational research analysts in over 25 departments. So we get into policy decision making and shaping the way that government works at a really fundamental level. I think what attracted me to a career with GORS is that sense that operational research is about making better decisions and using scientific methods to help make processes better. It is the science of better. When you do that with GORS, you're working with government departments to make the way that our country works more effective, more efficient, and to ensure that policies are implemented in the right way. You obviously don't come at that from a political bent, but you are there at the heart of government, helping to make those policies and those processes as good as they can be. We are not necessarily totally London-centric. Whilst joining any department will probably necessitate some time down in the capital, we're based across the country. So for DWP, actually the majority of my team, we're based in Sheffield and Newcastle. Whilst we've got staff down in London, there are opportunities all over the place. With GORS itself, again, there are a lot of government departments, and GORS is involved in everything from the Ministry of Defence to DEFRA to the ONS. Everything that goes into making the country run, to keeping us safe, GORS plays a part in making those decisions. The nice thing about joining GORS is because you're not joining a particular department, you can have the opportunity to move within the civil service and go from one department to another. You've got a real breadth of context to apply your analysis to. So if you spend a few years at the start of your career in the Department of Health, there's nothing to then stop you working in transport or in culture. You've got real flexibility as to the way that you move about. And that's particularly true on some of the graduate schemes like Fast Stream, where you're encouraged to move within and between departments. So we tend to recruit in a fairly location blind sense, particularly at the moment. So whilst some roles will naturally necessitate that you're on site, a lot of them can be performed from local offices. And as you can see at the moment, I'm speaking from a shed in Nottingham, so not exactly Westminster, but it does mean that you've got opportunities wherever you are. Myself, I joined GORS a few years into my career. I studied theoretical physics at university before deciding I wanted to teach physics. I hadn't really heard of operational research until I decided that I wanted a bit more of an analytical career. I then stumbled upon GORS and the civil service, and it just sounded really interesting, this idea that you could use those analytical techniques, the problem solving, which is what I love about physics, but applying it very directly to practical decision making and policy creation. So I've been in the Department for Work and Pensions since about 2018. My work is focused predominantly on financial controls and risk management, so safeguarding public funds. But work is very fluid, and you find that analysis is always in demand, and that as policies and priorities shift, so too does your work. You will have some long running projects, but day to day, you've got to work quite flexibly to meet evolving needs and change in response to, I suppose, the shifting policy landscape. I found the work incredibly interesting. The nice thing about working in government is the access to data you have. When working with risk analysis here, you're looking at taking information from all sorts of other departments. So HMRC, we will look at the way that people earn money and how that plays into their interaction with the labour market and the benefit system and all these different facets of society that are linked together. My current role, I'm responsible for contracted employment provision validation. What that is it's centred on safeguarding the money that the government spends each year in helping people back to work. So we work with a lot of external companies, so some quite high profile international companies like Maximus, but our net expenditure is in the region of 200 million per annum on these schemes. We need to make sure that that money is being spent in the right way and that we can minimise as much as possible fraud and error. So we do a lot of big data work to exploit all the information that we can to ensure that any monies we pay out have been paid out for the right reasons. There is a lot of sort of workforce planning and other sort of time series analysis to enable us to deliver these very, very big programs in a cost-effective way. And then at the end of all of that, you've got sort of the impact analysis, the almost econometrics to make sure that what we are spending the money on was worth it. So everything that we do, we're doing with taxpayers' money, and we've got to make sure we're delivering value for money. Operational research is key in making sure that we're spending money in the right way, for the right reasons, and that it's having the best benefit to society. Within government, operational research sits alongside the three other key analytical professions, so economics, really can't speak, statistics and social research. Operational research, though, picks up facets of all of that, and what you find is that a lot of these work interchangeably, and at times what you're doing, you're feeling like you're being a bit of a statistician, sometimes an economist, fewer times social research, but the overlap is there. And it's really good working as part of GAWS because you're having those synergies with the other professions and you're part of a really, really large cross-government analytical network. As an example of where GAWS has had some impact, so key question, Department of Health needs to ensure blood supply meets demand. The problem with blood is that it has a short shelf life. So you have some real key decisions to ensure that the right blood gets to the right place at the right time, minimising costs and wastage along the way. So the analytical problem there takes into account such wide issues. So you've got the demographics of the population, so the way that that evolves over time and shapes the demand for services and for the blood in this case. Operational research has ensured that we are able to model that in a way that means that there are not shortages at any particular point and that you're not wasting things along the way. The challenges as ever, particularly working in government, is that you've got such a big network of information that you have to be able to get it cleaned and verified and into a workable format. So a real skill in government and a real opportunity is to work with all the different departments and bring in all that information, but do it in a robust and accountable way. Because when mistakes are made, they very quickly become quite high profile. You've probably seen things in the last few weeks in the news. What you do as an analyst in government has to stand up to the highest level of scrutiny. But the result of good analysis is that you can make savings and hopefully in this case save lives. Another probably slightly more data sciencey example. So working for the NHS, looking to ensure that we can shape the way that the NHS will respond to outbreaks of things like norovirus. So this is an example of using that sort of data science approach with GAWS to use data scraped from places like Twitter to look at the, I suppose, prevalence of indicators of norovirus. So people talking about having stomach upsets and diarrhea and winter vomiting, bringing all that information together to produce the sort of predictive analytics that will give either the Food Services, Food Standards Agency or the NHS the early warnings that they need to respond in a flexible way. But day to day, as with the other presentations you've seen, a lot of what you do will focus on computer programming, analysis, and finding the time to develop others and be developed. So it's a real collaborative environment within GAUS. You've got a huge analytical network to draw on, and a lot of what you do day to day is about sharing ideas and scoping out problems so that you can find a route through. Most of my time at the moment is spent training people up. It's been a really bizarre year for everybody, but it's been, I suppose, interesting because it forces you to deliver what you do in a new way. And we've particularly found that working remotely doesn't mean you're working less effectively. What you're doing day to day will really depend on where you're sort of joining from. We do whatever we can to ensure that we're making the best of the skills that you come with. For a lot of what we do, we're using programs like SAS. Sadly, a lot of it is still Excel based, but also Stata and SPSS, and increasing things like Python and R. If they're not things that you've experienced before you arrive, then we obviously make sure that we provide the training to put that into place. We are committed to ensuring effective professional development. So 100 hours of dedicated development time is expected each year. So you keep a CPD log. If you need opportunities, training, be from the OR Society or other places, we find the time to do that within your role. There are opportunities for funded masters and other wider training. And actually we started to do operational research apprenticeships now as well. The career pathway depends how you join. A lot will come through the civil service fast stream, which now has its own dedicated GAUS route. If you join on the fast stream, then you work your way through the sort of analytical levels over the course of a few years, with the aim of you taking on more and more ownership of your analysis, getting a wide range of experience, and sort of working up to line management and project ownership. At the end of the fast stream, we'd expect that you would then take the jump to a principal analyst position, where you're sort of owning a work area and a team, having regular contact with ministers and senior civil service. And beyond there, a lot of people, if they want to keep within the sort of dirty analysis and coding and programming, you might stay at that level. Others will progress to the senior civil service, which is a little less hands-on, but more policy facing and has the opportunity to shape things at a wider scale. Throughout all of that, you've got real flexibility in the way that you work and the opportunities that you've got to move within and between departments. Salary for placement students in London starts at around 20,000, but it varies between departments. And as you go through the graduate schemes, it varies from about 25 to 45,000. But some of the key benefits beyond that, we operate in a flexible way, so flexi time, you're taking ownership of your hours, and you do have the opportunity to work for the UK's largest business, really. You are looking at the running of the country. We're looking for people with a highly numerate background, so typically people come from physics or maths, operational research, but it is a real breadth of backgrounds. It just has to have a reasonably large numerate component. There are opportunities for direct entry through civil service jobs. The fast stream runs once a year. It's closed this year, but it will open again sort of September, October time next year. The next GAUS direct entry, so for graduate positions, opens probably in the spring. And if you want to apply, then you can either look through the GAUS website, so if you just Google GAUS, or go on the operationalresearch.gov.uk, and alternatively through civil service jobs and the fast stream website. Most of our sort of recruitment is based on purely on skill. So there will be numeracy tests and literacy tests, and sort of then probably some slightly more involved competency-based interviews, either in London or Sheffield, but obviously we're sort of responding flexibly to how we run those at the moment. But if you've got any questions, please let me know, and thank you for listening.
Great. Thanks very much, Robin, for excellent presentations, lots of interest and variety amongst them. So if our panel would all like to unmute themselves and turn their cameras on, we'll move on to the questions and answers. Questions and hopefully answers anyway. Okay, I'm going to start off with one that has come up in the other sessions today, and it's one for all of our groups to correspond with. What are your jobs, graduate schemes open to? Is it restricted to UK nationals, for example? Do you have to have any sort of security clearance? And I guess the third part of this is, do you sponsor visas for international applicants? Who would like to go first with that? Go on, don't be shy.
I take this on behalf of Atkins. So there were 3 parts to this question, wasn't there? Visa sponsorship, which we do in Atkins under you can be sponsored if you have one of the following: a UK bachelor's degree, a UK master's degree, a postgraduate certificate in education, professional graduate diploma of education, or if you've completed kind of 12 months of study in the UK towards PhD. So if you have one of those, we'll sponsor you. Another part was about security clearance, specifically for the management consultancy scheme. You will have to go through kind of basic security clearance, and that's just because of a lot of the clients we work with require that. And was there another part to that? The third part of the question?
Well, I guess is it just open to any particular group, like just UK nationals? But I think you've pretty much answered that.
Yeah, so anyone can apply.
By default. Okay, Melanie, were you going to jump in there?
I think this is a recruitment question, so I'll leave it up to
Victoria.
Cheers, Mel. Yes, so obviously it's not just UK nationals. You know, we have offices across Europe, Middle East, Africa. We don't offer sponsorship for graduates, but yeah, it's not non-UK nationals at all. We've had many of our graduates actually relocate midway through the scheme and after the scheme as well. I think probably one that I was most jealous of is one of our graduates who's now in his 2nd year, went all the way over to California. So yeah, very jealous of that one. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Adam, Robin, are you going to comment on that?
Yeah, so for IBM, obviously no nationality requirements on applying for the role, but we don't offer visa sponsorship for graduates. However, we do also run our graduate scheme in pretty much every country in the world. So there's likely to be similar roles available. Yeah.
Yeah, Gauze, there's not necessarily UK nationality requirements, but there is a flow chart. Generally, it's easiest to apply if you are UK or Commonwealth or EEA or Swiss. But the best thing to do, if you think you might be interested and you're curious, is to submit through the Gauze website. But there aren't necessarily any direct exclusions.
Super, thank you. Right, something that's related. How much discretion do your employees have over what projects they're involved with? For instance, would one be allowed to opt out of work in particular fields for ethical reasons, such as the defence sector or perhaps the alcohol industry?
Sure, I'll take that question from the Atkins point of view, since we were mentioned on that question as well. So our sector is aerospace, defence, security and technology. So we aim for everybody to have a say in the roles that they're doing. We want people to sort of progress down a career that they'd like to progress down to. But I think the position on working defence is that's a key sort of area for our sector. And I think anybody that's applying for this specific role has to be comfortable with that, although the company has sort of graduate schemes available in other parts of the business as well.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on that one? Richard?
I think Gores was mentioned there as well. As I mentioned, when you apply to operational research with Gores, you're not applying to any specific department and you are found a placement within a sector of government. You don't get direct choice with that, but I think if you did have any real ethical concerns, or for example, you didn't want to work for the Ministry of Defence for that reason, there is a degree of flexibility with it, just as there is with location. So, and with your work generally, just as with other sectors, we try to shape what you do to best fit both your developmental needs and also, I suppose, the context of work that will best suit those. So nothing's hard and fast, and I don't think in any sector of what we do is forced into something which would conflict with your ethics.
Great, thank you. Adam or Melanie, Victoria?
I think for IBM, I'm not sure that there's necessarily a written policy on this. I think if you were likely to be staffed on a particular project and expressed a particular distaste for it, that would probably be taken seriously. But I wouldn't necessarily think of yourself as having a veto on it. In terms of trying to match people with roles generally, if you kind of speak to the leaders of the practice and say, you know, I want to be doing something like this next, that's absolutely something that we'll try and match you up with. Yeah.
Yeah, from FICO perspective, just mirroring the same as Adam. I don't think it's ever come up, weirdly enough. But yeah, there's not really a generic rule for all, but certainly senior management, HR would look in it from like a case-by-case basis. And yeah, obviously if you express concern, we'd definitely take that seriously. But yeah, it wouldn't be like, I don't like Coca-Cola, I'm not working with them. You'd have to have something that's a bit more behind it than that. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, another question for everyone. Do you have any advice for people that are slightly older and recently changed career paths? The questioner in this case says, I've worked for 10 plus years in various roles with lots of transferable skills, but only knowledge of OR and stats is through completing BSc and MSc. Robin?
I don't mind having a go on this. So I joined operational research, I think about 8 years after graduating. So I've been out of doing what I thought of as hard maths for a good amount of time. I've been working in education, and I think what my biggest fear was I'd go into operational research into a graduate position and I'd be surrounded by people fresh out of university who were very, very, you know, in that academic mindset and had all the hard maths fresh in their heads. And in reality, I think what you find is that you gain far more than you perhaps think you might have lost over those years between graduating and pursuing this particular career. And what I found was that there were a lot of transferable skills that you bring, and it's better to focus on that rather than any reservations you might have about the time that you spent away from the subject. Obviously, it depends what you've done in that time. By the sounds of it, the question writer is a little bit closer to an analytical profession than I was. But I think the key thing is to go in with an open mind and be prepared to, you know, have a period of upskilling and that sort of period of chaos as you transfer from one career to another. But it's worth doing if it's something you want to pursue. I can't really recommend it more than that.
Anybody else want to go with that one?
Yeah, so in our team, we also have people that came from various backgrounds, teachers, for example, and we have a range of people that studied engineering, physics, maths, and it really, that's the beauty of the job, that you form teams with different strengths and you support each other. So I think as long as you're sort of people skills match the requirements that we're looking for, there's nothing to stop you from trying, because you can learn anything, and then there's lots of people to support you as well.
Great. Anyone else want to add anything more, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, so at IBM, I think the oldest graduate in the UK graduate scheme is in his 40s at the moment. So wouldn't need to add much to that, really.
Great, thanks. Anything more from Atkins, or are you happy with what's been said?
Yeah, I thought Robin's response was really good, and as a general rule for sort of all the companies, I think. So yeah, we certainly have people coming in not straight out of university, so yeah, I would encourage it as well.
Okay, next question is to do with providing internships during the summer. Now, I know Robin's slides had lots of information on that, so what about everybody else? Summer internships?
We do them. It's something that we did start about 2 years ago. It started off in our South African office, but obviously due to the drop, obviously we're not going into the office. It's kind of dropped at the moment, but hopefully we'll pick it back up next year. So if you're definitely interested, then I would recommend getting my contact details off LinkedIn and forwarding a CV to me. I'm really hoping we'll be all back up and running next year and we can do that. But yeah, who knows?
Thank you.
Yeah, for IBM, we don't do summer internships in the consulting business, but there is the Extreme Blue internship, which is more software aligned. But in that's kind of a 10-week program, which you would work on a client challenge. And actually, someone who recently joined our practice came out of that Extreme Blue internship. So that's probably the one to look out for.
Great. Anything from Atkins, Beth?
I think we definitely offer a lot of internships and kind of summer placements, even year-long placements. There's definitely them across the whole entire business. I think it's something we're looking to specifically do within this business, like our business coming up, but there are loads of other opportunities across the business.
Great. So I think the message would be look out. Sorry,
just to add to my point, the reason we aren't doing it this year is because we feel our interns, it's best if we are face to face. I know that we just feel like shadowing somebody and following, being present has worked a lot better than just over Zoom call. So that's why we haven't done it this year. Just wanted to be clear.
So I think lots of information in the slides and in the electronic delegate bags to follow up on that one. Another one for everybody. What type of software or languages are the most important for your jobs?
Mel?
Sorry, Victoria.
Yeah.
I was going to pass this to Mel.
Finally, a question from me. So we, at the minute, mostly focus on Groovy, as well as R and Moselle, which is a language we use for sort of linear programming and everything. So that, but we are more and more transitioning to Python. So that is also obviously a crucial skill for the future.
And just to extend the question, would you expect people to have this before they joined, or is that the sort of skill that they would pick up soon after joining?
I think you don't necessarily have to come in with a lot of coding knowledge. Obviously, it's good if you have heard of a programming language before or something. But we offer, when you join, you actually get trained on the tools that we use and the programming language. So you don't really have to have any skills. You'll be taught all of those and everything you need.
Cool. Yeah, hi. So similarly, you don't need to come in knowing anything, particularly on the graduate scheme that we're advertising, which is more generalist, and you sort of forge your path as you go along. I predominantly used Python in a lot of my analytics, particularly recently. But again, it's something you can find out for yourself as you progress through.
Okay, anybody else want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, at IBM, probably R and Python are the biggest ones we're regularly using in data science, along with kind of specific software packages for that kind of work. If you want to push more in a data engineering direction with your career, you might be using things like Spark as well.
Okay, Robin, sorry.
Yeah, so it's going to vary hugely across departments. So DWP is, so we focus on SAS and things like Excel, VBA. But depending on the data that you're working with is going to dictate the sort of software that you're allowed to use. I would like to use R and Python, but for whatever reason, it's not deemed secure enough at the moment. Other departments, depending on what they're using, will use that. I think the key thing to remember is that nobody's expecting you to arrive with that full skill set. There's always the opportunity to train up and learn new languages.
Great. Hopefully a couple of quick fire ones for Adam. What IBM stream would you recommend for somebody coming from an MSc in data science?
If you're interested in doing data science, then strategic analytics is the place to do it.
Okay. And again, for you, Adam, how much of your role is technical and how much non-technical?
So consultant answer, it depends. If you want to pencil something in, I would say, yeah, it will be project dependent, but say 70% technical, 30 not.
Great, thank you. Okay, back to everyone. Apart from a degree, what else might I do to demonstrate I'm qualified or a good fit for the role and/or organisation?
From a FICO perspective, as obviously been a recruiter, self-paced learning and just learning that people have done in their own spare time. I think that's key, and mainly because we can train technical skills, those consultant skills, so the soft skills are really key for us as well. We do kind of have this mindset that we can train anybody on our tech, but those consultancy skills are very hard to find. So yeah, I'll definitely say work on the soft skills and presenting and everything like that from our perspective.
Okay, anybody else want to comment on that one? All in agreement with Victoria, great. Right, next one. On the GAWS website, it mentions, oh, this is moving about. On the GAWS website, it mentions part-time roles. Are these available for new recruits, or are they typically only available for established employees after a few years?
As far as I'm aware, without giving you sort of a firm HR answer, I think flexible working and part-time roles are available from the outset. Certainly there's no requirement to work for a few years before it becomes available.
Great. Another one for you, Robin, while you're unmuted. What's the work-life balance like at GAWS?
I was just in the middle of trying to type an answer to that, but I'll give you a verbal response instead. It's really good. Probably similar to the civil service at large. Having a good work-life balance is fundamental to what we do. I think we operate on the basis that we will get the best out of people when their needs are taken care of, and having the time to sort of decompress from what can be quite an intense role at times is really important. There are measures in place like flexible working, so things like that work both ways. There are going to be times when you might have to work slightly longer hours, but it's important to then take that back and have time for yourself, particularly at the moment with remote working and ever darker evenings. It's important that you make time in the day, and things like that are encouraged. So yeah, I can't really speak highly enough of that.
Thank you. Okay, just dipping further down the list. What practical steps can be taken by those whose numerate bachelors were some years ago, but are thinking of shifting careers? Is a master's in OR what you would expect? Who fancies that one first?
Can you repeat
Victoria.
the question? I'll answer it. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Well, I could have done, except it's been moved. So it was about somebody who'd done their bachelor's, their numerate bachelor's, a number of years ago, Is a master's in OR one way to go about
it's
getting into
definitely
these?
Yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's the only way, but yeah, it's definitely a way. I mean, at the same time, that additional education, it shows from like a company perspective, it shows that you know, committed to something and you want to develop as well. So it shows you kind of progressing, but I wouldn't say it's the only avenue.
Great. Anybody else?
I guess this is slightly similar to that kind of career change question. If you have the softer skills, it's quite easy to pick up those technical and numeric skills again. So yes, it may also be a comfort for you to do that kind of master's degree, to that kind of remember it all, but you'll be surprised by how quickly things come back to you, I think.
I think the other interesting thing in this field is something that Robin mentioned, is we've recently had approved the standards for a master's level apprenticeship in operational research. And I know Gauze will be planning to offer that to some of their recruits, hopefully from the back end of next year. And of course, that's a route that will be open to other employers too. Okay, where was I? What soft skill is most valued by an OR employer?
So I think for us, it's probably how you represent the company in front of clients, what your people skills are. Actually, when we had our graduate day, it was probably maybe 20% technical, and the rest was just how well do you present, how do you handle situations where you maybe, you know, get put on the spot. So I think it's how you act with people and how you explain and express yourself is really important, I think, from a analytic consultancy based role, because you're gonna work with a lot of data, but the crucial bit is to transport your results to the stakeholders and peers.
Just to add on to Mel, the reason why she was chosen from that day that we recruited her is a lot of it was her communication skills as well, but she was having a lot of fun. So a lot of us, it's about energy and just being very positive, and just kind of enjoying yourself. I know it's kind of hard when you're interviewing to kind of bring that across through the nerves. But I think just somebody who's just got that positivity, it really comes across as like a soft skill.
I think one of the other...
Adam, were you... Oh, sorry, Beth, go on.
Go ahead, Beth.
I was just going to say, I think kind of quite a buzzword, especially at the moment around consultancy, is rapport. And that comes kind of from building that connection, having that energy, that motivation, and kind of things like that. So those kind of communication skills, being able to build rapport with clients is really quite important in kind of a consultant role.
Yeah, I think it's a similar story at IBM. It's good being able to do the technical work, but the ability to present and communicate your ideas really adds to it, and that's what we look for.
Great, thank you. Just keeping an eye on the time. What opportunities, a very general one here, what opportunities are there for growth and progression at your organisations? Who fancies challenging that one first?
I think at Fico, so I've been with Fico a year now, and I've been sent to 3 training courses, and we've got another one coming which focuses on Python machine learning, but also obviously the internal software. Then I mentioned in my presentation, there is a $5,000 tuition every year for every FICO employee to use on self-development, and that is, you can pick that somewhat freely. Obviously, it has to be useful for your career, but it can be a language, it can be a sort of business skill or anything. And I think there's definitely a lot of potential that FICO and FICO supports you in your efforts to grow as a person.
Just to add on to the bottom of Mel's bit, that tuition reimbursement scheme that we have, I've used myself. So I'm a recruiter, but I did like a £3,000 HR course that FICO paid for. And because I wanted to go the direction into HR, but that was something that was self-led by me. So in terms of progression, FICO really like listened to kind of where you want to go. And we've had people who have been in project management and wanted, like a graduate, and wanted to go into sales. And we've had people who want to be more technical, and then we get them trained up. And that tuition reimbursement scheme really helps for certifications. And it could be anything from, you know, somebody just wants to improve their Excel skills, and then there's somebody who wants to be a manager, so they do a management course. So there's lots of different avenues you can go down, and especially our graduates. I know that Mel got cut off before she was muted, but in our graduate booklet there's all the different avenues, and you'll be given that as well. I think are you sending that out, the graduate booklet? It's in our,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It's all the information's in there. Yeah,
great. Anybody else coming in on that one?
I think I'd say from Atkins' perspective, I mean, well, I started out as a transport planner, and I have completely moved career paths. There's lots of opportunities for kind of lateral movement, as well as Zoe mentioned in the presentation, generally as part of the graduate scheme, you're kind of on client-facing work 4 days of the week, and then your 5th day can be spent doing personal development. It can be kind of helping out on some internal initiatives. She was talking about working with kind of things. So Atkins are really good at supporting your personal development and kind of allowing you to see where you want to go.
Okay, Adam, were you coming in on this one?
Yeah, so I guess at IBM, from a kind of learning perspective, we have I think unlimited access to kind of Udemy, in addition to training courses that we run and you can go on, and kind of a lot of access to like O'Reilly books and things like that. So there's kind of a lot of resources for learning in terms of kind of career paths and development. It's a big organization, so there's a lot of things you could do. I would say that broadly speaking, you can kind of remain very technical and become kind of the guru of doing a particular type of modeling or a particular project. You could move more into sales. So you could say, I want to sign big deals that bring together lots of complex things and lots of areas of IBM. You could move more into architecture, where you'd be looking, as opposed to remaining technical, you'd be looking more at the high level and how do we solve a particular problem. Or you could move more into delivery lead and project management, where you're kind of managing projects and making sure things get done. Those are kind of some of the big areas you can move into.
Okay, Robin, anything you want to add on that one?
No, I don't think anything on that.
No, I think you made it very clear there's a wide range of stuff in the goals. Okay, eye on the time, perhaps our last question. Do most OR jobs involve programming? Robin?
Yes, I think so, but not exclusively. Soft OR is a very important skill and doesn't necessitate any programming at all. But I think anecdotally, I've not met many ORs who haven't had some exposure to it. And I think certainly for GORs, there's an expectation that programming is a key part of your technical skill set that you would either come with or seek to develop. It's the way that we access data now, it's the way we manipulate it, and it's the way that you turn those key questions into answers. So it's not sort of a hard yes, but I think you perhaps struggle to find roles that don't necessitate any programming at all.
Can you just explain what you mean by soft OR? It might be a term that many people haven't come across.
Sure. So OR, I think, is quite a nebulous profession. It encompasses a lot of different skills. I think you can broadly define those as to hard OR, which is sort of your maths-based, doing the analysis bits, and then the soft OR, which can be asking the right questions, working with your stakeholders to understand their needs. It can be drawing the right sort of picture to bring a problem to the fore, asking a set of intelligent questions that get to the root of an issue. So OR is about, from my perspective, doing things better and working scientifically through things. That doesn't necessarily have to be writing a page of maths or code. It can be thinking the right way, and soft OR are a lot of techniques that surround that.
Thank you. And back to the others. What about this? Does it involve programming? Does it have to?
I think we used to do quite a lot of wargaming on in Atkins, but also we have, as I mentioned in the business modelling and analyst team, we have business case support and kind of cost modelling. So they're not quite so programming led, especially in that business case support. You can kind of use, as Robin was saying, those softer skills in those kind of areas, and that kind of interpretation as well.
I don't want to worry you, Beth, but you've got a burglar who's just walked out with a printer. Adam, anything to add on this one?
So not all the graduate opportunities at IBM require you to do programming, but the DIY related ones probably do. Yeah.
Same for FICO.
Yeah, great. Okay. I think that just about covers what we wanted to talk about in terms of time. So we've got a little bit of time just to wrap up. I will say that the questions that we haven't been able to get to, we'll still put them to our panel and we'll share some of the answers that they have. A couple of interesting ones in there. The final slides, Amy, do you want to share your screen? Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully you can see my screen now. So yeah, thank you to all of our exhibitors, and like Gavin said, we will make sure that all the questions you get answered, and we'll send the answers around to everyone, as well as questions from the other sessions as well, just in case you were or weren't there. If you were here earlier in our first session, you'll have seen Eve and I run through some of the resources, support and opportunities that the OR Society have to help you in your career search and also your professional development. So if you've missed that, you will be able to see that when we send the videos of the whole event around you all, possibly I think it's tomorrow or a little bit later than that. Just the main points to close out this session is that you can sign up to be a student member to access most of our resources and opportunities completely free. Student membership completely free, and if you sign up as a student member, you can also get our special post-student rate for just £1 a month as well. And also being a student member means that you can apply for our £10,000 master's grant as well, which if you've been inspired today to do some further study, you can look into that a bit more on our website. And then yeah, so just use these last few minutes to also check your one-to-ones as well. We have a few remaining one-to-one sessions taking place with our exhibitors on Thursday. If there are any exhibitors you want to get in contact with who aren't available on Thursday, please do look through the delegate bag, which was sent out to everybody this morning. You'll find details of how to contact all the exhibitors on their relevant materials. If you have already booked your one-to-ones, but your questions have been answered during this session, please do cancel your one-to-one so that another student can have that time slot. So yeah, thank you to all of our exhibitors, and thank you to all the students and all the great questions.
Great, thanks very much, Amy. I guess I get to close things off by once again thanking all our exhibitors. Been a really interesting mix of lots of different options for careers in OR, analytics, data science, or even continuing options with studying. Please do get in touch if you have any further questions regarding any of this, and I'm sure Eve and Amy and myself and our other colleagues will be delighted to help you with that. Good luck with the rest of your studies and with finding some of these exciting roles. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thanks, folks. Cheerio.
And also thank you to Gavin, who's chaired all of these sessions as well.
Thank you.